Right, so in this series we're going to be talking about how to paint your, repair and paint I should say, your motorcycle fuel tank. Of course, this applies to any metal product you want to paint, I guess, in a high grade automotive finish. The fuel tank steel, there's a pair of plastic side covers and guards as well. There's a different process for doing those and we'll cover that as well. In this video we talk about the supplier I use and the products. We go into a bit of detail about the products and how to use them. Bear in mind, of course, this is for the home DIY guy. I'm not a professional painter. So I hope you enjoy this. Right, so I want to talk about paint. I've given Milsom's Auto Paints a plug in. Actually, I've given them several plugs in some of the past videos I've done. I want to talk about them a little bit more. They're a family-owned business in Ferntree Gully. You can see they've been in the role since 1970, or they've been in business since 1970. And I've never been given a bum steer. So I would recommend that you go in and see them if you need to get paint products. Now there is a bit of a problem with automotive paint, and that is that some of the retailers that sell it, there's one chain I'm actually thinking of who advertise quite heavily, and they do employ a lot of kids. And I have nothing against kids. I've got 3 teenage kids myself. That's all good. But they're not actually trained in the product, so you're sort of flying blind a bit. The other thing to note with it is you'll pay a lot more at those sorts of retail outlets, particularly if you have cans of GP thinner or acrylic thinner, whatever type you want to get, and you keep your old can, they can refill it a lot less than what you'll buy it for. You can see that was $27 a litre when I bought it. I think filled it was $16, and the same with wash, and you'll use quite a bit of that too, and that's $11, and I think filled it's about 4 or 5 or something. You'd need to ring them and find out. But of course, I use them for everything now. The other thing is, I have a couple of qualifications, but I'm not a painter. I'm a layman, and I'm working out of my garage at home. You do need to seek the advice, rather, of a qualified professional, and that's another reason why I go to them, because every bit of advice they've given me has been right on the money. The other person I sought my spray painting advice from for my short career, of course, was a retired painter that worked next to Raymakers Motors. Now, being an ex-mechanic, I've had quite a bit of dealership experience, and I've always come across guys that, yeah, I've done 10 of those, it's done like this, da, 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 da. And sometimes they're just talking rubbish, basically. Now, that's a waste of time, and it's disconcerting when that happens. And the problem is if you hit something like a fuel tank with the wrong products, and you get the order of it wrong, and you make a mess of it, you don't just use up products, but you're also going to find yourself, in some cases, having to go right back to bare metal, just like that tank is now, and starting all over again. So you want to try and avoid that by getting the wrong advice. Now, those shops I'm talking about before, I've heard some of the advice they've given in terms of automotive repair, and it's not my business to intervene when they're giving customers advice, but it is cringeworthy and false. So a qualified person is always the best person to seek in terms of advice for no matter, basically whatever job you're doing. Automotive electrics are the same, you don't want to fire. Mechanical stuff's the same. It's all very, very important you get it right. So let's talk a little bit about these products that we're going to be using. All right, so basically what we've got is bare metal. Now, the story is you're not supposed to put filler over bare metal. A painter will tell you, or a restorer will tell you, to put down say a 408 2-pack edge primer on the bare metal, do your filling, block it back, another coat of 408 I should say, and then you put your high fill on. Now, that's all good and fine, but a lot of the 2-pack products do contain isocyanates. I'm not sure about the etch, I think it does, which is cancer causing, stinks like crazy, and you don't want to use it at home. It's just not a good idea. So I have seen filler put over bare metal before. In fact, that's the way it always used to be done, and I've not had problems with rust from it. So that's the way we're doing it because we're at home. Basically up the top there we've got some prep wash. We're going to be washing everything to make sure it's absolutely spotless. Once it's washed, we can't touch it with our skin or with our fingers because of sweat, stuff like that. If you do touch a bit of bare metal with sweaty hands, it'll rust the next day, and I'll show you a piece of metal in a second that's happened too. So everything has to be scrupulously clean with prep wash. Then we're going to use our filler. Now that filler wasn't from Milsom's, that was from another seller, and that's the only thing I buy through them because I like using that product. I know it quite well and I actually really like using it, so that's the reason I've chosen that. You can get fine fills as well. When you mix this stuff with your hardener, you'll probably find little pock marks, little pinhead size air bubbles in it. and use a stop filler to go over that to fill it all in. Then of course, any bare metal parts that are still bare metal and aren't covered with filler, of course we go with an etch primer. We cover the whole thing in a high fill. This is a primer filler. We give it a few coats of that and we block it back again to make it nice and smooth. Of course, then we use our paint or our colour. Being metallic, we then cover it up with clear. For these products, for these acrylic products, I'm using a multi-purpose or a GP thinner, general purpose thinner. You can get a acrylic thinner which I think it flows off the gun a little bit better. I don't think it dries as quickly as a GP. In warmer weather you can use a retarder which will go into the thinner, which will make the paint stay wet longer and will flatten it out as it comes out. It can, in some cases, exacerbate problems with repairs underneath though if it stays wet too long. So I've gone in to Milsom to buy 4 litre can of high fill, which we need for the XC Falcon as well. The silver, which is going to be for the XC Falcon's fuel tank and also the tank on our bike and the guards and that sort of stuff. There's one thing I forgot to mention, which is a flex aid. As we're painting plastic flexible bits, the paint will crack off, and I'll show you what a flex aid looks a bit like gelatin. You add it to the paint and that keeps it flexible. That's a little tin of blue for the starlet, our little blue starlet. Of course, we've got the clear. No, that's the silver. That's the clear. That's the silver for the fuel tank. A couple of stubby holders, and of course this system here. Now this is 2-pack ISO free, so it's isocyanate free clear. The clear code 2-pack, clear code does contain isocyanates, and we're not using them here, but this is the ISO free. Is designed to go over acrylic products and give a better finish and a harder finish at that. Of course we've got its own special thinner, the clear coat itself, a hardener as well. Now it also came with this kit, and they've marked the 3:1 or 10% ratio that I've got to do it, if you like, with this pyramid arrangement. And that pyramid is illustrated on the cups by your paint level, your activator or your hardener if you like, and your level of thinners as well. And that shows you how to mix it properly, and all the mixing cups have that, there on the back. Now in these 3 little guys here, I'm going to do some experimenting that I've never done before, and that is adding a metallic additive to the paint to give it a bit of a lift. Now I'm not going to take the lids off these because apparently this stuff floats, as I've been told. You take the lid off and poof, it goes everywhere. So what I'll do, I'll plug the computer in, leaving it switched off, and run an earth lead to each of these so they're not charged with static when I open them. In these there's silver, there's blue, and there's a nude colour, almost a pinky colour, which we can add to the first coat of clear. And as we pass over it, over the silver, once it's painted on the tank, it will give us some sort of shimmer, and we get the level right by giving a couple of passes, whatever we need to get the effect we want. And then of course we give another couple of coats of clear after that, and that will give us the desired effect, we hope. Now I've never done this, I've got no experience whatsoever. I've painted metallics, I've painted solid colours, but I've not painted anything with an added metallic component. To give you some idea of the product quality, I painted that XW Falcon 4 years ago, whatever it was, with Milsom paint, and that didn't cost much at all to paint that car. It was actually really reasonable. And of course our XC restoration is also, all the products have come from them as well. This is the roof of the XW. Now I painted this a while ago. This has been buffed, but it has not been polished yet. I can't be bothered, to be honest with you, but you get a beautiful finish. This is just acrylic of course, but as you see, it's turned out quite well, and this was painted a while ago, so I could use a polish to really take out some of those scratches and swirls you can see in there. This, where is it? I saw some before. Oh, there it is there. Just those little swirl marks there. They'll all come out with the polish. I haven't got the rest of my stuff out, but always make sure you use a good quality block. These are Dura blocks. That was quite dear. It's about, I can't remember what I paid for this. I've had it for years. It was like 40 or 50 bucks or something. There's a kit of these you can get. And also a good quality respirator. The 3M1's pretty good. You have to keep an eye on the cartridges on those to make sure they don't go out of date, because they're full of activated charcoal, and we need to use one of those as well. And where I put mine, I don't know. So I've got to go and find it. I don't know where I put it. So of course we're not going to be leaving or opening any of these cans here with that lovely Plymouth behind it. But just for demonstration I thought I'd show you. Right, so I've got some 80 grit. And we're looking at this rear guard, and this guard's in great condition. There's no cracks or anything in it. Pretty good underneath. The issue is it's got gouges out here and there. Now, some of this stuff you don't see. There's a bar that comes down around where I've got that pen mark there. So you sort of see this bit and that bit, even though there's a light there, and the same on the other side. There's a huge chunk out here, and you don't see that now. I can't use regular filler in there because it'll crack out. I'm not sure if I can get a flexible filler or get a plastic bonding agent to sit in there and then sand it back. Araldite might be the way to go. Not sure. I need to look into that. So it's a matter of going around with 80. There's a whole lot of little ding marks there, which you can see I've started rubbing that out. And it doesn't come off easily. Plastic's actually quite difficult to work with. But it's a matter of going over it, not too overzealous, like that, and then gradually working up through the grit so that when we go to paint it, you can't see that we were there. The other thing we've got with the plastics is we've taken the transfer off here, or the decal, and there's all this adhesive residue underneath that sticker, and these things are horrendous to get off. I've been using a blade with a heat gun just to get it off in bit by bit. You're sort of taking it off in 5mm increments just to remove that. Of course, the sticker integrity has broken down over the last 30 odd years, 35 years. So far as this is concerned, the way I've been handling it is with, I'm going to find my rag, I don't know what I've done with my rag, putting a bit of prep salt down, sorry, and working it, and that will soften up the adhesive residue. And we need that all gone, because if you paint over it, I think you're going to see it through the sticker. I really do. I don't think that's going to go away in any great hurry. You can see I'm going through the layers of paint, but I'd sooner do that and eradicate all this stuff than not, if you know what I mean. I think the preparation's the key, and if you get it wrong, or if you're lazy with that, it's going to show up. Now, once we've done that, we can just sort of get a blade, and the blade will remove the residue, and you end up with a sort of a gummy mess everywhere. Some people have recommended using CRC or RP7, whatever you want to call it, WD-40, to remove sticker residue. We've got lots of little cracks, lots of little scratches, I should say, in here, and so I don't want to have hidden residue of a lubricant underneath something I'm going to paint. So it really is something we need to be, you know, very, very thorough with. Where's that rag I had? Oh, here it is. Now, that's all good in the centre, but there's still more to go. So this is horrendous. We know that's horrendous. So this is the stuff that takes an awfully long time. But it's also the type of thing that once you're finished, if you get a good result, you'll be really pleased that you did it. So I'm going to persevere with this. I've used a series of different papers on this. Started off at 80 to get rid of these big scratches and gouges. There's one there, I've forgotten about it, didn't see that. Then gone to 180, what was the other one? 240, and now we're on 400. And there are some bits that need filling, which I don't like the look of. I think I mentioned, did I mention? The bike has a bar that sort of comes up and around, and goes around there like that. That's the tab on the back of the bar, so it's sort of there, and it's got a tab which mounts. Of course, there's your tail light, as mentioned, and I'm just going around. You can use a bit of detergent in here while you're wet rubbing it. I'm not doing this terribly well. But this will keep back and give it a nice area for the paint to adhere to. There's a bit of discolouring there, but that doesn't matter as long as it's smooth. Of course, there was all that roughness in there. Still a few pot marks. I reckon I can get that with a high fill primer. I'm not too worried about that. Any of this stuff sort of there back, if you know what I mean. I need to be able to, it needs to look fairly good. But look, it's old plastic, and finding replacement parts for these things in good condition is very difficult. Finding it in excellent condition is nigh on impossible. There are other ways we can do it in terms of using non-genuine stuff, but I don't want to. I want the thing to be Honda. I want it to look like a Honda. So the other thing I didn't mention was the use of a flex aid. You have to use a flex aid on this because there is a certain amount of, obviously, flex. And even though this has got a steel frame sort of under it, it is going to be prone to cracking if we're not careful. And some of these other ones around here I'll fix. I've got to do in there as well. That's not very smooth. Some of the other spots on it, sort of under the seat, I'm not so worried about. It'll still look nice and clean, but there will be imperfections. I want to find the best way of filling in some of those imperfections. That'd be good if I could. I'm just worried about regular thinner. I don't think that's going to cut it, so I'll keep going with it. And we need to make sure it's nice and smooth. Now, we can't buff this, being plastic. And maybe there is a way you can do it. I don't know it though. So you'll find with the flex aid, it's got to come quite shiny off the gun anyway. As I've said in previous videos, this thing here is a thinners bottle, and very, very good. I rarely use it for body work. Really good with water in it for checking vacuum leaks in cars around carburetors and inlet manifolds. That's what it's for. Also, topping up batteries. Right, there's a tiny mark there, but I don't reckon that's too bad. I don't want to go too thin, but that should be right. I might just try and get it a little bit more, and I reckon we can call it quits for that. So still working on the side covers, you can see quite a bit of the paint is coming off. There's a scratch down there, which I did with the razor blade, and a few other bits and pieces, but generally that's smooth. There's a little bit more work to do on that. For the rear of it, these aren't painted, they're raw. Very, very hard to clean, and I found the best thing to do is just a bit of water and some Scotch-Brite. We'll get that plastic looking far better. It does, I suppose, put fine scratches all through it, but they're too fine to see. And, you know, in areas like this, that's obviously a bit of overspray or something. I don't know what that is. But that sort of thing does come off. I'm not at a very good table for demonstrating this. I don't want to shake it too much and drop thinners and stuff all over the Plymouth, so I might just move a bit of stuff around. But we need to sort of clean up all behind there, because it's details like behind these sorts of things which are immediately noticeable. That's silver overspray, come to think of it. A lot of that, I can see it when I look at it in certain light. But anyway, I'll clean up that side as well and show you what I'm talking about. You know, it's just a matter of cleaning up behind there. You don't see any of this stuff, but at the end of the day, look, there's a mark there, which I might be able to wet sand that out. But it's the same sort of thing as buying a new car and then lifting the spare wheel and seeing a whole lot of crap under there. You don't want to do that. You need to get it. That's a burn. You need it to look good. That's a burn. So we're aiming at doing it. I told Dave we're aiming at a new bike, and you know, there's more to get all under here, that sort of thing. There are a few bits and pieces I've still got to clean up with this cover, and likewise on the back. It's got a little bit of overspray there, but I reckon it's the difference between a new bike and one that's sort of just a sort of a polished turd, if you know what I mean. So we need to do that. Different plastics for the rear guard. That's a black plastic under there. I'm going to paint that silver. I know I'm asking for chips and things like that, but it's just the way I feel about it. If it was white, I'd leave it. Underneath the seat, for example, is white, so we can get that like that. As I said, there's a little bit more to do there. So those two are almost done. I think the next thing we'll do is we'll start having a look at the tank. I've got some rain outside. And we've got to clean up all this old residue from the paint stripper. We've got most of it off. There's just a tiny bit left that needs to be attended to. There's absolutely no odour in there at all, so that's good. I've got it nice and clean, so I'm quite happy with that, and it looks pretty good inside too. Right, so if you there's a video I did on stripping the tank, and I was doing the doors off the car and restoring at the same time, and I'll put the URL in the description so you can see that. Of course, the paint stripper we used is this, and I mentioned that in the other video as well. GRP, brilliant paint stripper, again from Milsom Auto Paints at $50 for 4 litres. A lot of paint strippers are, I don't think are as effective as this. This is easily the best stuff I've used. It got through spray putty and all sorts of stuff. Now, this is nasty stuff. You want to wear a respirator with it. There's all sorts of descriptions on the back, including the type of paint you're using it on. Where did I see that? 2-pack paint, acrylic paint, air dry enamel, you name it. They talk about it. Acrylic, again, single pack acrylic. It talks about all the different paints and sort of the process of using it. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, the thing is, it does contain methylene chloride. That stuff is nasty. It's really nasty. And you are recommended to, basically, when you're applying this thing, do it outside in a well-ventilated area and wear a respirator. That way you keep yourself a little bit safer. It's nasty, nasty stuff, but it really works a treat. Now, I gave the tank 1 coat of stripper. I didn't leave it on long enough. 1 coat will make, being a factory Honda finish, the paint fell off. It's that good. Right, I'm going to stick some gloves on for this. Now, this tank looks clean, but it isn't. There's a few things I want to talk about with it. We're going to fill it, and there are little imperfections in it. There's a dent there. You can see how mucky that is. I've just put a coating of stuff on it to stop it rusting. Of course, we have some phosphoric acid into some of the little pits where there was rust. Of course, this was all bare metal and surface rusted from where the seat had been rubbing against it. We also have up here at the filler neck, where it's been brazed at the factory. This isn't giving me any feel at all. It's a little bit rough, so we have to have a little skim of filler in there. We don't want it high. We want to mask all that off. These gloves don't fit. And basically make it look neat all the way around there. Now, the other issue we've got is this dent. Right, so here's our tank. Now, if I get a ruler, it flares up here toward the filler. But if I get my ruler, there's a dent there, which I'm looking at. And it's got a point of contact as it goes down. Now, it flattens out where the dent is and then continues down on that radius. Now, that flatness, there's probably 2 millimeters, if that, deep. So we're talking, what, a 12th of an inch or something like that. Now, this has got a couple of details on it that I don't want to mess with. It's got, of course, this large detail here that peters out to nothing, comes across. We don't want anything in there. That's a detail that we see when the thing's painted. And of course, we've got this one here that starts off at nothing and runs up and then around, sort of under there like that. Now, that's obvious on the painted tank. This bit here isn't, because that's where the black is. We know it's there, but we don't know how far it goes, because you don't see a lot of this stuff here. Having said that, you can feel it. Now, as far as that dent on the back is concerned, what can happen is if we just fill that dent, you're going to see it, right? You'll see the transformation go down. It'll look a bit flat, and then it'll go down like that. It's going to be obvious, it's going to scream, it's going to be a high gloss, and it's going to be black. And so we don't want that. Sometimes what can happen, depending on the metal, the thickness of it, of course, and also the shape where the dent is you can get high spots around a low spot. So if I fill the low, and I go to block it back, then again, like I said, it's going to be obvious. If I cover that whole thing in filler and then block it back, sometimes what you'll find is there'll be an eyebrow there at the edge of the dent. So it's low here, high here. Now, you can use a gas torch, heat this up and tap around it. I'm not going to do that with this. It's too much of a complicated shape, and I haven't got the experience to pull that off. So I'm going to fill it. And that's the reason I wanted to use my straight edge to see exactly where it was and if it was high in that area there. And I think it's going to be alright. I reckon I can hide that. It might pay just to go around the perimeter with a hammer, just give it a few very light taps, just to pull it in, and we might be able to disguise it that way. The rest of the dents, look, there are people who would hot glue a nail onto them and try and pull it out by leaving against this and leaving against that. I'm not going to do that. Or you stand to do more damage than good if you don't know what you're doing. You can get dent removal stuff, but given this is only a couple of millimeters, if that, it's not worth playing with. I'm just going to fill it. On the sides, there's one there. I can feel that. You can see a little spot. There was a lot of paint lost in that area, and there was surface rust. We've eradicated it. We've just got that little spot there, which we've dug everything out and put a bit of phosphoric acid on. But that is pretty good. So we dented there. Let me stand up and have a good feel. Of course, we've got the big one there. There's one there on that apex there. I can feel that. And it's just a matter, if you shut your eyes and don't look at what you're doing, there's something going on there too. There's a low there. I can feel that. Turning the thing around. There's a low there. The rest of that doesn't feel bad. There's something there too. It's low there. Yep, there's a dent there. You can see that. That's going to be a pain in the ass too because it's on that ridge. See that low there? So there are a few dents, and so what we need to do is we need to clean this thing off and get some filler out and have a bit of a look. So we're washing the whole thing down in Prepsol. Prepsol is just basically that, preparation solution. And we're going all the way around. You can see how dirty that is. We can't put filler or anything on something that's dirty. So we have to give this a couple of washes down. And we've also, don't forget, got all that paint stripper residue that could well be lurking there. Now once this is exposed and hasn't got anything on it to keep it from rusting, this thing's going to rust quickly, really quickly. So the other thing that's worth doing around areas like this, get in there with a toothbrush, just in case there's any paint stripper nonsense in there. You need to get it off. You need this thing so clean you can eat off it, literally. Says here using a dirty toothbrush. But don't worry, we'll get it clean. It's all good. I think I'll just wipe that off for now. But we need this so freaking clean. Now, the other thing you'll find, if the metal's not clean enough and you fill anything, when you go to etch, you'll get a furry line around the perimeter of the very outside of the filler, if you know what I mean, where it's actually started to react with the etch primer, and we don't want that either. We want it to be absolutely seamless. Bogging tools, that's a tack cloth. Actually, before you paint, you go over that. That'll get rid of dust, anything like that on your job. Tack cloths are a good thing to have. That's our filler we're using, the Body Soft. I like that because it never, it stays exactly where you want it. It doesn't sort of tend to fall or anything like that, and it's pretty easy to sand and polyglaze. That's a metal filler that you can use. U-Pole do the same sort of thing. It's full of stainless steel shards. Great for, you can't paint straight over that. You have to have a skim of plastic over it. That's really good for joints in, I used it on the joint between the C-pillar and the turret on the XW. I think it was that I used. I might have used a U-Pole one. I've had that for a while, I can't remember. But it's basically what you do, the factory had them lead filled. And I was worried about, I was going to try lead filling with a wooden paddle and paraffin and all that sort of stuff, but I was worried about the flux they used and any rust sort of forming underneath that, so I didn't do it. This is a quick stop putty. I don't like this as much as I do the 2-pack one. There's a 2-pack filler. This is for the very, very small pock marks you get left from air bubbles when you're mixing the filler. That's what you fill it in with. Now, yeah, it's okay, but the 2-pack one is absolutely brilliant. Got different blocks, bits and pieces, applicators as well, which of course you can form to the shape of the thing you're filling. You get any streaks in there, you're going to see it in the finished product. There was something else I wanted to show you, but I haven't got it. I do have to get a few, that's another one I made. I've got to get a few bits of gal sheet to do spray outs for David too, when we add our little glitter and all that sort of stuff. So I'll use that sort of thing for those spray outs. Now, right, so I'm going to leave it there. We're gradually getting it spotless. In the next video, we'll do the filling, block it back, and start laying down product. So I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next chapter. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.